Disclaimer. To the Pharisees and Karens out there.
How dare you?
All guests on this show do not reflect the opinions of the host. The purpose of this show is to have interesting conversations, stretch our minds, and grow.
Not what we want.
If you are looking for an echo chamber, viewer and listener discretion
is advised.
You talk about extreme.
Hi, this is Fritz Zimmerman. Join me October 25th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Prometheus Lens. We're going to have a Q&A about the ancient burial mounds in the Ohio Valley and paranormal investigations.
And if this is not exciting enough for you, we are also giving away a signed copy of Steve Quayle's True Legends for all the people that sign up for the All Access Pass for the month of October. And like any great infomercial, there's more. For the people that show up to this Q&A with Fritz Zimmerman, we will be randomly selecting one member in attendance to also receive a signed copy of Fritz's new book, Ancient America, The Dark Side. So do yourself a favor, head on over to PrometheusLensPodcast.com and sign up for the All Access Pass.
Hello, everybody. This is Joe Artis Horn from Skywatch Television, and you are listening to Prometheus Lens right now.
What is happening and what is up? Hold out your glass, because we're about to fill it up.
All things continually lead back to serpents, dragons, fairies, Nephilim, and fallen angels.
In the distance looms a mystical mountain.
As Mike Heiser used to say, if it's in the Bible and it's weird, it's probably important.
At its peak, a great fire burns, concealing the Prometheus lens.
This development of this knowledge that's being talked about within the mystery schools.
An ancient artifact said to reveal the hidden truth within a deliberately darkened world.
There is a hidden history that's been deliberately obfuscated from the peoples of the world.
Join us as we travel and explore the vast unknown. It's a hero's journey with dragons to slay, damsels to save, and innumerable treasures to hoard. Torches high.
The Smithsonian, they caught wind of a giant skeleton. They would send their agents out to get it.
But it takes courage to move forward, to move out of the shadows, out of the unreality that we think of as reality.
We are all on the hero's journey.
Mankind has been in contact with and influenced by extraterrestrials.
Leave the Sitchin mound of bull feathers out of it.
You know, look at it from a different perspective.
What is happening and what is up? Hold out your glass, because we are about to fill it up. Welcome to the Prometheus Lens Podcast, the place where the conversations are always enlightening. I'm your host, Justin, and here we like to use the allegory of the Prometheus Lens to take a second look at everything. If you're new to the channel, welcome to the hero's journey. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We'll have our socials coming down below. Be sure to check those out on our various platforms. It'd be much appreciated. Well, today, guys, got a treat for you. Someone that I just grew up as an infant Christian, reading the books and watching the films, and this is a man that honestly needs no introduction, but he's a man with many hats. He's a director, he's an author, he's a researcher, he's a public speaker, he's done film directing, he's now the CEO of the infamous Skywatch TV, so we are very, very blessed today and honored to have Joe Horn on the show with us. Joe, thank you so much for your time.
Justin, it's my pleasure to be here, my friend. Thank you.
I greatly appreciate it. For those that are not familiar with Skywatch, if they've been living under a rock, kind of just give them an overview of who Joe Horn is and what you guys do.
So my parents, in particular my father, he started Dr. Thomas Horn. He was a multi-time best-selling author and a giant, massive titan of Bible prophecy for many, many decades. If you've ever researched topics like, aliens through the lens of a biblical worldview, the Nephilim, Enoch, the book of Enoch, Ezekiel's wheel, anything having to do with the book of Revelation or Bible prophecy, you're probably going to stumble across Dr. Thomas Horn. And he got it in his head over a decade ago that there wasn't a television platform that would consistently handle the materials that was being written in his books. Does that make sense? Because he's taking on subjects like I just mentioned, and he found that a lot of these platforms would kind of pass. And he wanted his books out there. He wanted his message out there. He felt like God had given him something to say, and he felt like the church and a lot of popular television outlets, radio outlets, just weren't dealing with the subject material. Now, ironically, at the same time, all throughout the 90s, early 2000s, way into the 2000 teens, he is now on secular radio broadcasts. These are the people that will take his message, and he never had any problems with it at all. He'd have Christians that were unwilling to take the interviews on because they don't want to deal with his book, also throwing rocks at him, saying, "Why are you talking to those people? They're not Christians." And he would be like, "Here's your sign." Bingo, yeah. Right? These are exactly the people that he wanted to persuade. These are exactly the people that he wanted to talk to. So he would be on Coast to Coast AM talking to 250 million people while the church is ignoring his book. Does that make sense? And these are people that have an interest in the afterlife. Are ghosts real? Are aliens real? Are they biblical demons? Are they entities that some, benevolent creator manufactured and then pumped out into a universe that we have no idea about, right?
Yeah.
The same thing with the book of Revelation, or just people's fascination with the occult or supernaturalism. And maybe some of these people are disenfranchised from the church because they've talked to their pastors about some of this, and they've gotten two really common responses from most of the entertainment-based church today are, first, why are you fascinated with the obscure? You tend to be a bit fringe. That alarms me. You should get back to the basics of, biblical teaching and living, etc. Not that there's anything wrong with the basics of biblical training or lifestyle, but it's the unwillingness to deal with difficult questions. And then the second part of it is you would find out that a lot of pastors are not inherently interested in, therefore they don't know a lot about things like Bible prophecy or the occult or supernaturalism, or my grandmother passed away a year ago and I think she's talking to me at night. Is that biblical? Can that be happening? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And the story just goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on. I could tell stories all day about my dad and some of the stuff that he did when he was doing exorcistic work, and some of the supernatural warfare that he experienced as a young pastor and then all throughout his career. But the bottom line is, you asked me about Skywatch TV. I'm giving you the shortest answer possible, but with enough context to explain what Skywatch TV was in its origin and what it continues to be today, was a response to the lack of willingness from major news outlets and the organized church / entertainment-based Christian television programming to deal with these issues. And so roughly 2012, he starts talking to me, and he was always ahead of schedule. He had for years been saying, "No, trust me, son, someday TV isn't going to be like today. You're not going to buy a cable subscription and then a satellite's going to drop 400 channels for $100 a month." He said, "It's all going to TV. It's all going to be streaming." This was before podcasts really erupted. We're talking in the early 2000s. And he's telling me someday the internet is going to be, your access to television. Mm-hmm. And then he started describing smart TVs before we even, you're still dealing with, what we used to call a boob tube. Yeah. The biggest TV you could buy and take home, just short of one of those mirror reflector televisions that was, 4 feet by 3 feet or what have you, was about a 36 inch. Mm-hmm. And it would take 3 guys to lift this behemoth, into a vehicle if you had to move. People remember those. They were heavy, man, really dense.
2.5 foot wide.
Yeah, they were really heavy. But he said, "No, trust me, someday you're just going to turn your TV on. You're not going to have a satellite box. There's not going to be an extra cable subscription sitting there next to the thing." He's like, "You're just going to turn the TV on and have full access to everything." And he said, not only is it the future, but it's going to give rise to a lot of us that can't get mainstream access, a platform to create our own programming. So by the time we hit about 2012-ish, he is now talking to us as a family about Skywatch TV. And now he feels like God is really giving him this vision for what is going to become what exists today. Now, I'll give you an interesting, unless you're bored to death with this explanation, I'll give you an interesting tidbit that I've not talked about much. So this is just for you, Justin. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I promise you this is going to blow your mind.
I'm holding on.
Buckle up, man. He's talking about the launch of Skywatch TV. I am working with his ministry out of a sense of commitment to my parents, not obligation, but commitment to help them with their dreams. But what I'm really doing is I'm a dog trainer. And people can fact check this. They can go back to 2014. I've got a dog training DVD out. I'm like 100 pounds heavier than I am now. I'm not aware that my health is about to completely implode, but I'm training dogs and it's what I want. This is what I want. I want to be an animal behavior expert. I've done a lot of the schooling, and I'm deeply immersed in dog training, and I'm taking on clients that have, if you've ever seen the TV show, The Dog Whisperer.
Yeah.
So don't go watch that and think that Caesar Milan and I are identical in both personality and approach to training dogs. But if you see that show and you've seen it, then it's the closest thing I can hand to somebody and say, generally, I did a lot of what you see there in terms of accomplishing intervention for dogs that are biters or about to be euthanized. I had a big heart for the dogs that were misunderstood. And you find out that most of these dogs that are biters or being labeled as aggressive are misunderstood. And it's actually a people person problem. It's an owner problem.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like the word owner. I prefer
caretaker.
Caretaker, steward. Sorry, that was the word I was shopping.
Go.
We're stewards of responsibility. When God has blessed us with pets and animals, they're like family members, and we shouldn't think of ourselves as owners, more custodians. We have dominion over them. It's up to us to make sure that their care is provided and leadership when necessary. But I tend to stay away from harsh corrections or the idea that we're the owners. But that's just a Joe Horn personal thing. So I've got this businessman, Darren Pappas, who was the Branson Dog Whisperer, handed me his entire Rolodex when he moved from Branson, Missouri to California. He said, here are all of my clients. You're the only one that I trust to take over these long-standing clients that I've been working with. And so I'm deeply immersed in this. Now, here's the part I promised you needed to buckle up for. You ready?
Okay.
I was actually encouraging my dad not to launch Skywatch TV.
Oh, wow.
And if you understand in context why I took that position, as he was dreaming about what he wanted to do and why he was launching it, it makes some sense. He had been talking for a few years about the need to retire to get my mom set up. Should something happen to him, he said, I never want her to get stuck groveling for bad wages. It breaks my heart in advance, this idea that she would be without a nest egg or something to sit on so she could land on her feet. I don't want it to become you kids talking about me and my siblings. He's like, I don't want it to become your responsibility to now scramble how to, advocate for our estates or anything else. He wanted to make sure she was taken care of and that us kids were free to live our own lives. And so I said, Dad, this whole Skywatch TV thing kind of fights against, at least in my view, exactly what you've been articulating the need here for you as a man to accomplish is. I said some things that are so funny. I'm going to tell you what I said, and then I'm going to tell you what happened. And then you'll see how God has a serious sense of humor. I said, definitely. Dad, if you do this thing with Skywatch TV, you're going to end up with 50 employees. You're going to be operating out of a retired Walmart building somewhere, a massive, giant building. You're going to need to warehouse books and products and employees and offices. And I said, and the third part of it was, I said, your cell phone is going to ring off the hook night and day. There will be no escape. So that doesn't sound like a retirement plan to me. That sounds like you at your age is getting ready to jump off the edge of the pirate's plank into the grand unknown. Like this is probably not, he had some success as a writer, and I felt that he was really risking some of that revenue that he had created to leave my mom with this massive expense of building a TV studio and everything, right?
Right.
Because he was self-funding all of this. This was way before we were asking viewers to partner with us and stuff. Is this making sense?
Oh, yeah.
So
risk.
It's possible I've told this story, but never in this kind of detail. From memory, I've never gone into this kind of detail. So you'll have to tell me when you're done with it. Like if I talk too much about these details.
Oh, no.
I'm just telling you the origins of Skywatch, and the son that now is the CEO is telling him, don't do this thing, Dad. I was seriously concerned about it. Here's the part that I think affords us a minute to laugh and remark about the irony and maybe some bit of humor on the behalf of our Father God. Those things have happened. But it wasn't my dad who would ultimately end up being in the positions that I articulated. So we didn't get a Walmart building, but as God is my witness, he finds this retired grocery store, this massive grocery store, the identity of which I will leave ambiguous so we don't have people trying to find the location of the building and all that. But it's a retired grocery store. We did end up with 50 employees and sometimes more during seasonal help during the summer, et cetera, et cetera. And my cell phone does ring off the hook constantly without reprieve.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize as I was telling my dad all of this stuff was going to be his reality, that it would be ultimately mine. But I'm not depressed about it. I'm not jaded. I'm not upset about it. God had, from 2014 to present day, during the whole exodus from dog, I'm no longer actively training dogs or in a career that involves animal behavior. I was at one time what my good friend Debbie Short kind of spoke over me. We were on the phone one day and she said, Joe, as I was grappling with this whole dog training shift, and I feel I don't have a release to leave Skywatch. I'm kind of asking God for it quite a lot, because I really wanted this other career path. And I'm telling you, I had my parents, do your thing, man. We want you to be happy. Dream your dream. What's your calling? Get together with God. You sort out what you need to do. They were never these parents who told me, son, you just can't leave us like this. Boy, we're counting on you. It was never like that. It was never a head trip. My dad just totally believed that God would take care of the needs of whatever ministry. Go live your life, man, whatever that looks like. Greatest parents of all time. But I then would get together with God, and no matter how hard I rationalized the want to move toward this dog training career and really embrace that fully, because this other thing was kind of me just helping my parents with something that sounded important to my dad, I didn't have a release. And it was one that I wanted big time. And I felt for a couple of years there, as I was doing both full time, it was tearing me apart emotionally. My adrenals were shot. I'm trying to run Monday through Friday. The dog training business had now become weekends too, because I couldn't get to all the clients, and sometimes weeknights. And this is all while I'm trying to help produce TV for my father, who had now launched Skywatch TV, and they're on syndicate satellite television networks all over the world. And my good friend Debbie Short says, Joe, you remind me of a marlin. And I said, what do you mean by that? And she says, now these are her words. I don't think of myself as some prize. But she said, I view you as a marlin. I said, what do you mean by that? And she said, when fishermen go out, one of the most prized fish that they catch and then trophy and put on the wall and display, etc., they have to fight long and hard for those. They're not an easy catch. It's one of the reasons they're so savored and cherished and celebrated when fishermen have large ones that they can pin on the wall, etc. But they're a costly battle. Sometimes they're difficult to find. They're exhausting. Multiple hours of fighting back and forth with the tension on the line. And she said, I think of you as a marlin. God's been trying to wear you down. He's been trying to get you to see the obvious solution to the answer to your prayer, and you're fighting him, right?
Fighting the whole way.
Lord, but what I want is over there. And what I feel you're calling me towards, this thing I don't want, is over here. Because I really want that, right? So Lord, the things I want, the desires of my heart, right? You know how you rationalize things. But really, if I were being honest, I just felt like I needed to surrender. So ultimately I did. Roughly around 2015, 16, I am full in now on Skywatch, and I have retired from dog training, and I'm still busy with the question at the time of, Lord, I still don't know what my calling in all of this is, but I don't have a release. And so now I'm just going to be obedient and do whatever I think is required of these ministries.
Are you a hunter or hiker or prepper, or just someone that enjoys the great outdoors? Whichever case that may be, Squatch Survival Gear has you covered. Not only is this a veteran-owned company, all of the products are 100% made in America, baby. All the way down to the fabric and every stitch. So whether it's a day hike, a weekend getaway, or the ultimate bug out bag, head on over to squatchsurvivalgear.com and use the code PLP10 for 10% off store-wide. Hey guys, what's going on? Hey, I just got a call to action for you. If you're enjoying this episode at all, you're getting anything from it, please take the time to click that like button, click that share button, and share us with your friends and your family on social media. Those are great things that help us to grow the show and increase our listenership. And also, while you're here and I have your attention, flip over from the chat, go to the comment section. Just drop me a quick comment. Let me know where you're from, what you think of the episode. All these things help the algorithm and help the show. And if you're not on YouTube and you're listening on your favorite platform, please, if you've not done so already, give us a 5-star review. All of these things are great ways that you can contribute to the show that you love and listen to every single week. Thank you guys for all the love and support. Back to the episode.
And that I could go on and on. I won't, Justin, for the sake of not boring your audience to death. But that was I'd love to tell you that was a quick season. I had clarity. My father passed away. To collapse the story, he passed away last October. So we're coming up here 10 and a half months. Pretty soon it'll be a year at the time of this recording. And it honestly, to collapse, because this is complicated, but the last couple of years of his life, I felt like I was standing in a necessary gap for people that needed leadership while his health was really becoming difficult. And he hit it so well on TV. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't my place to scare everybody. Hey, your champion is winding down. And we were doing everything we could nutritionally to buy him time and to support his health. And frankly, I believe that had a lot to do with buying him at least 3 more years, because it was getting really serious around 2019, 2020. And the last 3 or 4 years of his life probably was. We got blood labs on him 8 weeks before he passed away, and his cholesterol's perfect. His blood pressure's perfect. His blood sugar is perfect. And this was all being done by things like curcumin and berberine and black seed oil and nattokinase and N-acetylcysteine. And we're pumping him full of things that were, pro-cognition, because he had also been told he had early Alzheimer's. And so while he was winding down, he had a stated position of wanting to retire. He wanted to take my mom in an RV and go be ambassadors for what happens today at Whispering Ponies Ranch, which is Skywatch TV's charitable ministry that facilitates the rehabilitation of children that have been pulled out of sex trafficking and the foster care system and abuse that happens in every way imaginable. And the plan became he's going to take my mother and they're going to go out across the nation and let everybody know about the good work that God is doing through Whispering Ponies Ranch. And in that way, surrogate and be the ambassador for the ministry and for the branding, et cetera, et cetera. But his cognition was kind of resetting. And I don't want to go into a lot of detail here, but anybody that's ever had a parent or a loved one go through cognitive decline that seems fairly rapid knows exactly what I mean by resetting. So vaguely, I'll describe some of what was happening towards the end of his life. Is I would start getting phone calls from staff members that need to know what to do because they and I had maybe had meetings that were the side effects of conversations I would have with my father. So out of respect, I make sure that he is satisfied with the direction of a decision. After he is satisfied and believes in the direction of a decision, I disseminate that information to staff. And the very next day, sometimes the same afternoon, they would be calling me, hey, Tom has contrasting ideas and now wants to do a 180 or take a quick right turn where we've all agreed on. And I would call my father. Oh, that's right. Okay. It's very hard for me to talk about. And if I'm not careful, I'll lose it. But the last 2 years of his life was me trying to administrate almost as a partner to my father, out of respect, wanting for him and my mom to feel respected and considered in every aspect of the ministry, but also totally recognizing that he was resetting. And there were layers of confusion now because staff don't know what direction to follow. And it was a really difficult tightrope to walk. And I don't know if my performance was perfect. Someday I'll stand before the Lord and maybe he'll reveal a report card. But I will tell you that my support of my parents, my devotion to try to do all of the right things, I'm proud of. And I believe that my mother, who is here with us still by the grace of God, thank God, for as long as we can keep her here, feels the same. And she knew the dilemma and never felt like I was undermining my father or this was a coup, right? That I made moves and counter moves to dilute his administration or anything. It was a tough deal, Justin, just a brutally tough deal. And then he passes away last October. And I said all of that to say, because I had kind of set your listeners up for, I'm praying, God, I still don't know what my identity in all of this is. I feel like I'm responsible for a bunch of it, but what is my calling? Is it just to stand in the gap during a time of transition? Is it to try to keep the ship moving forward when my dad is facing so much difficulty, but later you're going to bring in a different administrator? What is this? Because I've surrendered the dog thing, but what is my calling? I was a musician at one time. I'm a father of 4. I have aspirations and dreams that at times I struggle to kind of envision how it fits in with the things that dominate 99% of my life. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. 100%.
The responsibilities and so forth. But here's what I wanted to say, and then we can move into some other direction if you want. I ended up, over the last few months, getting little, I think, spoon-fed, breadcrumb answers to some of those prayers. And I think that now that my sweet hero, champion, best friend, colleague in ministry, partner in everything, mentor, I would have him back in a heartbeat if that were an option, selfishly, even though I know he's in a better place and he doesn't miss this place at all. And so I'm being really careful how I say this. This is not a time of celebration for me at all, but I think that some of the answers, Lord, what is my identity? What do I bring this ministry in terms of vision? Because I've been following my dad's amazing leadership for years. You're kind of, if you're me, I guess, you're kind of in a soul search to determine what your own identity is. Let me just say,
like the Rocky Balboa movie. You remember the son approaches Rocky and takes him outside. He's like, Dad, you cast a big shadow. You know what I mean?
Yes,
and
yes.
I could only imagine being in your position and trying to find your own identity and your own path with such an amazing man standing in front of you.
You said it best. I mean, that's exactly it. I forgot about the Balboa reference there, but you're right. Although contrasting difference, I wasn't jealous or angry at my father,
right,
or angry that he casted a big shadow. I was always proud of my dad, still am. You know, I've told my mom his books are going to be like Kurt Cobain on steroids. You know how some of these artists are almost obscure, and then they pass away, and then the whole world's like, wait, who was he?
Yeah, they were before their time.
They're before their time. I feel like my dad, you could say the same thing about Russ Dizdar. You could say the same thing about Marcus Lamb. You could say the same thing about a lot of these people that we've lost, over the Rob Skiba was a friend of ours. We didn't agree on everything, but you can maintain friendships and disagree on certain aspects of non-salvation issue.
Right.
Well, and for that matter, you can maintain friendships with people that have non-salvation issue discrepancies in their theology as well. But, publicly endorsing the theology is a different thing. So you would maybe privately let people know that you disagree with certain things. But again, attacking the body of Christ for differences of opinion in social media, I think this is a bad look for people. I think it weakens you.
Oh, yeah.
You look like
children. The book of Matthew says if you have an issue with your brother, take it up in private. And you got too many people willing to be right fighters and fight and be ugly in the presence of millions of people. And it doesn't paint a good picture for the body.
No, it doesn't. And my dad used to say, if I would quote my father here, he would always say, don't attack the person. Attack the ideas. You can attack the theology. You can do that. Be very public. And his whole career was being very public about terrible theology and demonism and everything else. But he absolutely would not attack the messenger, because he always believed that you would only galvanize the very people you're trying to persuade against anything that you're saying. And it's a net total lump sum loss. And I've got examples of this that you would laugh about, man. I'm not sure if it's appropriate for your podcast, but it's leaders that were being called out in books that he would then publish, but he would say, we're going to sanitize the identity of these people. Okay, I understand the wisdom. And we would sanitize the identity of the people, but leave the theological assertions in. And the very people that had prior been under attack in the book had these people on their own shows saying, wait a minute, you're telling me that there's people out there that actually think this way? And they have no idea that they were the ones originally in the book
that's you.
That the whole chapter was about. Is this making sense?
Yeah.
It makes my point.
It's all
for
about
me.
perspective. Sometimes people got to take themselves out of the equation to see something.
Just to wrap up. So, my father casted a giant shadow, but not in a way that made me jealous or feel inferior or inadequate or any of the things you might expect me to have felt. Just the net reality of him being such a massive hero to me. And yeah, I'm going to be really honest. This year has been a lot. Losing insurance at our camp. The enemy, it's like he learned that my father passed away and saw an opportunity of weakness. Skywatch is disorganized. They're without their champion. It's time to go full throttle. And this year, man, I could fill 5 hours with just the new difficulties that have been leveraged against us in almost an onslaught. And we're just very private about it because we don't want to give people ideas. Yeah. You go out and you say, ladies and gentlemen, pray for us. Here's the very specific area that we need prayer. And you'll have people praying for you, but you'll also have people going, that's a good idea. I could make a lot of trouble for these people doing the same types of things.
And last month when we met too, that was the first time we had met. And I remember me and you just, everybody was inside still watching a presentation, and you come back there to the exhibitors and come through, and I stopped you and we got to having a conversation. And you don't know what's going on behind closed doors. I mean, I knew, your father was a huge inspiration to millions of people. So I can only imagine. I mean, I never even met the man, but when he passed, how it made me feel, how his family and friends and that void that's there, not even from a fatherly role, but from a leadership role, And I remember I told you, I said, because I had no idea, you don't know what goes on behind people's, closed doors and stuff. But I remember I told you, I was like, I know it's hard and it's fresh, and I don't know if you guys have come under some heavy attack, but if not, it's coming, and just keep going, man. And I'm praying for you. And, your dad loved and trusted you, and you are not Joe, you are not Tom Horn, you are Joe Horn, and he would want you to just grab this thing and make it your own and go. And after having some conversations with you, you find out just all the spiritual warfare that is behind it. It's just crazy how God works through people, man.
I appreciate you saying that, man. And I left the Go Therefore conference, the one that you're referring to where you and I met. I left there saying to myself, Justin is a legitimate guy. And I'm grateful for your efforts, man. I'm grateful for this podcast and all the stuff you're doing. And that's why I'm doing this today. We're talking, man. We're going to probably get past. You've asked me one question so far, and I think I've dithered now for 30 minutes. So was there something else you wanted to talk about today?
We got plenty we can talk about, man. And that's what I told everybody that I came back from the conference with too. Because a lot of times you do, you build up these altars, and these thrones for the people that you follow and look up to and read their stuff. And then a lot of times you meet them, you're disappointed, I was not disappointed with you whatsoever. I told everybody just how down to earth you were, and just, warm and welcoming. And,
thank you.
I don't care what Kenny C has to say about you. You're all right.
I don't ever care what Kenny C has to say about me. Right. What's funny is if we call him out on this podcast, he's going to excerpt it and post it to social media.
Oh yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. So for those not familiar with Kenny C, now we have to explain who this guy is, right? Justin?
Yeah.
Do your followers know who Kenny C is?
Oh, I'd say a large percent of them do, but I'm sure there might be a few that don't.
He's just, so I met Kenny C through Facebook several years ago. He was having heart issues. And to collapse, I reached out and I said, brother, there might be some help for this. And I just felt led to try to cheer him up, be a support, minister to him, let him know I loved him. And one thing leads to the next. I end up dropping him my cell number and we're having a conversation. And he and I hit it off like, when you meet those people for the first time, you feel like you've been best friends for 20 years. Mm-hmm. It was one of those kindred connections that's instant. I often think of those as probably the Holy Spirit. When you're in the company of people that have the same spirit. Does that make sense? So we pick on Kenny and he picks on me. And actually there's a video out there. I don't know if you want to link it in your episode, but it's from the Go Therefore conference where we're doing this ruse.
Yeah,
where I'm at his book table and
his new shirt.
I'm lifting products from his booth, and I did that and I said, I wonder if Mike's going to see this and think, what kind of a bunch of clowns have I invited to this conference, right? Yeah. But Kenny C affectionately refers to me as Joey Showbiz.
Yeah.
It sounds juvenile and kind of infantile, but it's Kenny. So what are you going to say, right?
Yeah.
But he's a good brother. He's a good brother, and he ministers to a lot. He's got children that he teaches music to, and he's an encourager, and he reaches out to people. So when all the laughter is set aside, he's a genuine brother.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, I know you had mentioned Whispered Ponies Ranch. Could you go into that a little bit for those that are unfamiliar, what that ministry is, and if they feel led, how can they support that and help you with that ministry?
Sure. You can go to skywatchtv.com. And you'll find buttons at the top of the page that you can click on that will take you to places that will now inform you via photograph and article what exactly Whispering Ponies Ranch is. But for the listeners, Whispering Ponies Ranch is basically the culmination of a response from the people at Skywatch TV, primarily my parents, who also founded that ministry. My mom was the original visionary for that ministry. What it does is it exists to serve children that are wards of the state. These kids are in foster care, and some of them have now come out of foster care, but they've been abused in the most horrific ways you can imagine. Many of them have been rescued or salvaged out of sex trafficking, but have emotional trauma that normal, unabused people in society just working their 9 to 5 will never, ever comprehend. And I'm thankful for that, because it's a really dark place to get stuck. The constant need to comprehend these terrible matters of crisis. If you're a child advocate, if you're a social worker, if you're someone who serves these children, there's kind of no escape from that perpetual bombardment of the recognition of spiritual darkness. In other words, you're going to constantly learn about terrible, terrible things. The contrast, though, is that you're also going to see God show up for these kids and really work on hearts to do things that psychologist programs and therapists and highly specialized rehabilitation training programs and seminars just simply can't touch. And I'm not saying that to diminish the efforts of a secular society who also simply has a heart to do something for these children. Those efforts can be very valuable, but there's something next level about the intervention of the Holy Spirit that's very difficult to articulate. Sometimes it's not even an exchange of words when we're serving these children at Whispering Ponies Ranch. So I'm not sure if I made it clear what Whispering Ponies Ranch is, but it's a therapeutic campground that my parents built and founded where these children come for reprieve. So they're put through rehabilitation. They're put through animal intervention. My oldest daughter, Kate, is the animal the animal encounter specialist at Whispering Ponies Ranch, and she raises the zebu and the llamas, and they have goats now. Lots of animals that you'd think of as being at a petting zoo, and then they also have over 24 miniature ponies. And these ponies have been trained. Some of them can do hospice work. They go into hospitals and visit people. Some of them have been trained to get on elevators, and they're potty trained. And it's crazy. Like, what? But these animals have a very special connection with children. And a lot of these children, when they come to Whispering Ponies Ranch, the first day of camp, these kids, a lot of them have never been around the body of Christ. They've never been around people that only exist to help them and to love them and to tell them that they have great value and that there's hope in Jesus. And so they're very shut down. They will arrive that first Monday for what is going to be a week-long camp of constant games and activities and programs.
They're used to dealing with predators, people that take advantage of them and want to do something to them. So they got their guards up,
That's right. And even words like love, you have to be really careful. All of the children come with a profile. They have what I call a rap sheet. It'll say, little Susie wets the bed. Little Timmy has nightmares. If that happens, this is what you do. These are words that are big triggers. Don't use these words. Like, it's a highly developed program, very tailored to the individual needs of each child to the best of human capacity. And these children will come in. Some of them are so severely shut down. This happened to me not 6 weeks ago. I am at a campground. There's a young man. He is not mute. There's not a thing wrong with his ears. He will not speak to you at all. And I ended up, Lord, I'm whispering under my breath, this poor boy. He can't do this all week. I mean, we need basic communication. He's got to be able to give me a thumbs up or down on what activities he wants or doesn't want to be involved in. Like, how can I give him a lever of control over communication with me, but so that we can do this for a week? You would say something to him and he just literally just angry and shut off. And I finally, the Lord just kind of working on my heart, and I'm desperate, and I'm whispering prayers like in proxy, Lord, what am I going to do? You gotta show me something. And I just, out of the blue, I said, you know what? On a scale of 1 to 10, just put up your hands. 1, you're excited to be at camp this week. 10, you want to go home right away. You know, and I could get him to do this. Sorry for your viewers that didn't catch that. I went like this. Or he would give you a number on a sliding scale. So as long as you posed all the questions on a scale of 1 to 10, he would give you a number. And towards the end of the week, he was now very chatty, and he had come out of his shell. Now, he unfortunately did not work with the animals of Whispering Ponies Ranch because we were displaced this year, but children like that come to Whispering Ponies Ranch. And what happens is, when they won't speak to anyone, you can just take them to where we have our therapeutic animals. And usually within an hour, just the presence of an animal that they know instinctively has no agenda to abuse them. They instinctively understand that animals don't hide or conceal malevolent plots or schemes. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
They can just feel a reciprocal love and affection happening very organically with a small goat that just wants to sniff your knee and lick your hand. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so they will start to ask the counselors question. And I say counselors in parentheses because we try not to be viewed as counselors. We try to be viewed as family members. So we will not put on our name tag Counselor Joe. It'll be Uncle Joe or Grandma Sarah or Uncle Dave or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. Trying to reinforce that family is there to support. Family is a good thing. Family is important. And so they'll start asking questions. What does this little goat like to eat? And now the counselor has an opening. Well, they like this, or the little horse likes a little bit of an apple, or maybe let's try a little grain, or would you like to feed him?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. Put a little spot of grain or something on the hand, and then that kind of tickles. Oh my gosh. Does he want more? No, he's probably had enough for now, you know, and then you can talk about being full, and it gives him the energy he needs. And what did you think of the camp food this week? Well, I kind of like, you see what I'm doing?
It breaks down walls. Yeah.
That's it. So people that don't understand the interaction of the animals or have never thought of it before, I can tell you it is miraculous what God can do through animals that don't speak English.
Hello, everybody. This is Gary Wayne on the Prometheus Lens podcast, and inviting you to join the podcast and get the All Access certification so that you can enjoy all the interesting information that's being brought forth to you on a regular basis, and would encourage you to do so. My experience with Justin has been nothing but praise, and I want to thank him for digging into things and letting people make their own determinations on things, and that's what we're all here to do. So let's try and learn as much as we can and put on the armor of God.
When children are shut down and they don't want to talk to a person that does.
Well, even humans, you know, I tell people all the time, I'm like, yeah, preach the gospel wherever you go and speak when necessary. You know what I mean? We're supposed to be imagers of God. You know, your witness should be your kindness and your compassion and your love toward your fellow man.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, they just don't have a voice. So that,
yeah,
we have one, and it's messes stuff up a lot.
That's for sure. Well, that's kind of just a bird's eye glimpse of what Whispering Ponies Ranch is. And that's something my family serves every year. Even though the camps were displaced this year, God opened up doors for the children to network with our ministry to find alternative locations for camp. And we actually went there, my daughters, my wife, some of my staff, and we volunteered sometimes for entire weeks without coming home, just to serve these kids. And I will tell you, man, it is, when I said, a few minutes ago that I believe that God is, breadcrumbs, following the little breadcrumbs. He's not giving me the whole picture yet of what I'll be doing in a year from now. And I don't say that to assert that I'll be gone from Skywatch. I mean, what does that look like, Joe Horn at Skywatch, in a year from now? I think he's giving me some of those answers. And I know that I kind of touched on this earlier, and I might have gone too long when I was talking about my father, but I was kind of trying to sort out for your viewers in a way that made sense some of the answers that I think God is beginning to reveal to me about what my purpose in all of this is only possible because I'm not following this massive titanous administration that my father was so effective at constantly organizing ahead of you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I would wish, if I could, I would wish that he would be back with us for any number of days. And I can guarantee you, he would say, "Why did you bring me back? What am I doing stuck here?" Cause he's in a place, now that there's no jealousy at all to come back here. But, it sometimes lessens the pain of missing someone that you cherished so much, is to know that they're somewhere that eventually you'll get to see them again, and they're somewhere where they're not suffering.
Amen.
But there's only so much. We are stuck here. We are human beings. I feel like a pinhead sometimes, but yes, I miss him terribly. And so my logic says, you don't hurt for him. He's in a better situation. Someday you'll be with him again. Anyway, what are you sad about? He wins. God wins. You'll be with him. But in any case, that's kind of a snapshot. And we didn't even talk about, at Whispering Ponies Ranch, we have a zip line. We have a rock wall, an outdoor playground, an indoor swimming pool. These kids come for what Wayne Tesh, who is the founder of Royal Family Kids, that's the group that we primarily serve, and then a group called Teen Reach. Those are the two that we primarily serve during the months of summer. Wayne Tesh founded Royal Family Kids, and he describes Whispering Ponies Ranch as an oasis. Basically a paradise. He calls it the theater of the outdoors, where these kids come and they're hurting and they have their encounter with Jesus Christ. And so it is the thing that I am, in terms of ministry, the most excited about. And that's what I say. That's what I mean when I say, what will my involvement look like in a year from now? It's up to God. We have some very talented people. Derek Gilbert is a very talented host. And for example, if I need to step away from hosting the weekly program, Derek, he's a champion and defender of that seat. He will do the ministry proud and honorable. I don't have to worry about him getting egg on our face. He's already told me he's very willing, because he and Sharon Gilbert are major supporters of what happens at Whispering Ponies Ranch. Does that make sense? So I'm just saying, I don't have specific
you got pieces
thoughts.
You can move around to different slots. You got a very talented crew.
But if I move them, I'd like to think of it more as God is rearranging things, because ultimately what I feel I need to do is fill the role that my father used to, in terms of being the ambassador for the ministry. I feel like God doesn't want me to turtle up and become an island and only host the Skywatch TV program. I think he wants me out there networking with like-minded ministries who are children advocates or focused on, the dilemmas that they're facing. I have dreams, Justin, I've never been public about. I would share them with you, and this would be the first time ever they've ever been talked about publicly, if you want to go there.
Yeah, man.
I don't want to tie you
anything
up.
Your country. Hey, I'm here all day, and I love to talk. I have a podcast. As long as you're willing to talk, man, I'll listen, and I'll even throw my 2 cents in every once in a while.
Okay. I have shared this with my chiefs of staff, and my family knows this. I've not been public about it because, again, I hate to put forth a vision while God is still working out the details. And I don't know if this is exactly the way this will come to pass. But if I'm just dreaming, what's in my heart, what I want to do, is start a dog training business. No, I'm kidding.
You and Kenny C, you're going to go on the road and start a band.
No.
If you guys haven't seen, you need to check out Joe's social medias and stuff, man. He can wail.
Oh, are you talking about guitar now?
Oh, yeah.
Well,
I said, you and Kenny C going to start a band and hit the road, then I was complimenting your guitar skills.
There is a guitar duel out there on social media between Kenny and I. And he and I have had a lot of fun picking at who really won that battle, right? It's probably on Kenny's Facebook if people want to see it. But anyway, sorry, this is me being totally undisciplined, Justin. You've put me at ease. I don't feel pressured to keep a particular bullet point of talking points moving. We're just rapping now. But if I were dreaming and not trolling your audience with the dog training business, what I actually would love to see, if your viewers remember, and I'll rattle off several because it's likely that your viewers would only maybe remember one of these references. But if you took Lamb Chops, Pee-wee's Playhouse, Salty, the singing songbook with Charity Church Mouse, Captain Kangaroo, Mr. Rogers, and I realize that not all of these are Christian shows. We're not going to talk about Paul Rubin. This is not about the people running, or I'm just taking big picture, the Gospel Bill show. Mm-hmm. That was a giant one about 35, almost 40 years ago now. But these were programs that used real life people, not CGI, not cartoons, real life people to animate. I don't want to get into examples like Barney, okay, because that's not it. But again, using real life costumes and characters, and I don't know if God will do this. I don't know. I don't know if it will be a priority. He may reveal in a year that we really need to triple down on only what we're focusing on at Whispering Ponies Ranch, because right now we're still without an insurance policy, and there's a lot there that needs to be worked out. But if I'm just dreaming, Justin, I would love to live long enough. I would love for God to stave off judgment long enough. I would love to see that this country have like a spiritual renaissance and a turning back to God. Some of my Bible prophecy friends and experts disagree with an assertion that my father and I often talked about, and that is the possibility of great revival, even for a season, to salvage an entire generation before the final trump. When you look at what's happening in Israel right now, that could happen at any hour at the time of this recording, I understand why it feels very bleak and like the world could change within a heartbeat, and it could. So again, I'm dreaming. Mm-hmm. But were I to have a season, I would love to do two things. One, I'd love to launch like a weekly children's program called Defender Kids. And it would be a subsidiary of Defender Publishing, maybe a wing of Defender Investigative Films. God has given my family everything that we need to be able to produce television. He has showed us the ins and outs. How do you get network time? How do you cut? We've used a lot of that to create documentary films like the forthcoming, I'm just going to silence my phone very quickly, like the forthcoming Rescue Us series, which deals with what I talked about at the Go Therefore conference. This massive crisis affecting an entire generation of children right now that are being systematically dismantled, especially in Western civilization, in particular this country, the United States, by malevolent forces that delight in their suffering and their dismantling, because I believe they are Christ's greatest gift to us. Yep. They are the innocent ones. They're as close, I believe, to Christ's nature before the world ruins them that we're ever going to see in this life. And I believe that the enemy takes great pleasure in seeing their lives destroyed before they even find out who they are. And that's essentially what the Rescue Us documentary series that is coming here in about a month, 6 weeks from now, is all about. And it's everything from the normalization of critical race theory, the normalization of pedophiliaism in the classroom. It's the normalization of the use of pornography with children to open up dialogues between adult and child, to try to normalize what is essentially sexual abuse, to try to normalize that for lots and lots of reasons. We could talk for 3 hours about that. It's the trafficking industry. It's how predators actually align themselves with systems like the foster care system because they know the blind spots in that system and they know exactly how to exploit them to create a never-ending proverbial conveyor belt of victim after victim after victim in their own home, knowing that the system is so busted that they will likely never face any kind of charges or jail time or reprimand at all. It's what that series is about. So in response to that, what we're doing at Whispering Ponies Ranch is a very personal intervention. And I don't want to replace that model. I don't want to move away from that model. I want to go 5 times that model and have other people join that model. But Lord, were you to give us the resources? Would you to give us the capital? Would you give us the time? Would love to do 2 things. First, launch a weekly program for children that goes back to real life characters playing out real life dilemmas and family issues and, cruxes over sharing and what language to use and what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And there's reasons why, but before I get to the reasons
values
why,
back into a young generation.
Values why, but there's reasons why I wouldn't say, Lord, give us the funding. We want to launch a CGI cartoon. And it's not to disparage the people that have, but there are psychological studies. And when you work with children, you really get this on an instinctive level. And you see the practical aftermath of a real life person to person intervention, not a book, not a comic book, not a anime, not a cartoon. Children will watch to be entertained cartoons and CGI, but they will not be mentored by them. There's something about real life people, that social connection. They kind of attach to the idea of a fatherly or a familial person in their life. Maybe Grandma Blam, who is my mother and affectionately got nicknamed Grandma Blam by my children. And now that's what she uses at Whispering Ponies Ranch, her name tag, Grandma Blam. She wants to be in this daydream that we're having that might be the Holy Spirit. She wants to be Grandma Blam in this endeavor and put on overalls and walk in on stage with a miniature pony. And the kids we want to create a weekly program like that. The second thing that I want to do that could be it could be a side effect of this, it could be kind of an outbirth of that, would be to take that brand. So let's say God blows it up and Defender Kids is the greatest thing that's ever happened. And we're getting hundreds of thousands of people watching the videos and they're clamoring for the t-shirts and they want more. I would love to then almost take it on the road and do a series of massive church events where we do like day events where, you open up and it's this raucous celebration. Somebody takes the stage and, you've got I know some very talented children entertainers who totally understand the psychology of taking kids that have OCD, ADHD, basically my childhood. And they are masters of keeping kids engaged in a series of object lessons or illusionist maneuvers. We don't use the word magic because now you start to get off into secularism, but illusion. And then the big reveal. Musicians running out on stage and interrupting the last act, like a series of acts that kind of turn over and over and over that amount to like a 3 hour and then, or maybe 2 hour, and then you go to lunch, you come back another 2 hours, but something that's like a day conference for kids. I would be willing to bet you if we started with churches that already have programs for children, they would be so receptive to that. And I'll bet you the first time we had an opportunity to put this on at full scale in a large church where we could get video on it, it'd be game over. Thanks for playing. It's done. Lucifer loses. This movement is so big and so organic. I feel like if the Lord gives me the time and the resources that I can peel away from some of what is in terms of responsibility, Justin, that something like that
Yeah.
So I've taken a risk today to share that because I can't be sure that's where we're going, but I'm just daydreaming, and that's what's in my heart. It could look different. It could be that God manifests it differently than the way I'm picturing it, but ultimately that's my heart. Is I am fed up completely, Justin, fed completely up, pretending like if the United States experiences a big red wave that we've done our job as Christians to go pull a voting lever. I am fed up completely with the church that is completely asleep to this massive crisis, that are not prioritizing this from the pulpit at all.
Raise the kids, and just who was it? Stalin said, "We're one generation away from." Yeah,
I think several people have said that. Several people have,
it's prime
in different
example,
ways, have said you're only ever one generation away from losing your freedom. And I got to tell you, man, there's part of me that sees like a conservative renaissance
in Christianity.
What is it?
That's in your faith, Christianity as a whole. I mean, every Disney show you watch now, they throw in a cross-dresser or a gay or lesbian kid, and they're desensitizing and trying to adjust the moralities and stuff of our children while we're at work or whatever, and they're watching these shows. So, I mean, what you're talking about is definitely a need that needs to be filled, and I see is extremely important.
What you're describing sounds very much like our Rescue Us documentary series. We cover all of that, the attempts to normalize gender transition while the parents are not even involved. Like, it is literally Looney Tunes. So on one hand, I see that there is an effort to kind of revitalize almost a renaissance of conservatism, but none of these platforms, I don't hear any of these politicians. I don't hear our church leaders. I don't hear anybody with major platforms. They're like Tim Tebow. I appreciate that he's out there raising awareness of the aspect of this that has to do with human trafficking. We need more people with large platforms to get very serious about this, because honestly, Justin, I feel this strong about it. And this may come off a little bit judgy and kind of, well, man, he's really on a soapbox. He sits there on his high horse. Like, who is he to tell me anything? What I am not suggesting is that everybody that holds a position of volunteer at a church, or the people that are washing the dishes or pastoring or serving the youth or sweeping the floors, or maybe you're a school teacher or whatever. I am not suggesting that there isn't fabulous value in what you're doing, and that you're not exactly where God has placed you. That's not what I'm getting at. What I am getting at is I feel like the church is largely unaware of how bad this crisis is. The number of children that come up missing from the foster care system with no chain of custody, I think people would be absolutely blown away to learn about how many children are abducted or even forced into prostitution by their parents. What? Forced into prostitution by their parents. Maybe they're looking to curate a bad deal they've made on something they can't afford to square with really bad people. They don't care about their children. They've been abusing them themselves. Why not loan little Timmy out for the weekend? This stuff is happening in this country at a scale that is just mind-shattering. 90% of the kids of the boys that survive the foster care system will immediately fall into places like prison or jail. They have no life skills whatsoever. They'll be incarcerated next to instantly. They'll carry a stigma for life that they're of no value, or they come from bad stock. I heard about little Timmy. I don't want to give him a shot. He comes from that bad family. Nobody will employ these people. They've never been prepared to do life or to have social skills at all. The girls, 70% of the girls will fall statistically almost guaranteed into a category of young mothers who will have children out of wedlock that are statistically guaranteed to end up in the foster care system themselves. So you have this perpetual, and I think to myself, if just 5% of the entertainment-based church that has wherewithal, that God has blessed, even some of the ones that focus on superficial things that might annoy some of the Skywatch audience because their theology is flimsy or whatever, I would take them too. Get up on your podium and at least make this a monthly or a bi-weekly matter of prayer to intervene for the children and for the activists, the advocates that are supporting these children, and whatever that looks like. Law enforcement. We have some good people in law enforcement trying to do what they can to profile what appears to be a young girl being seduced from, let's say, somebody via social media at school, because she's coming home with pedicures and manicures and hairdos that are very expensive, and the parents don't know how this is happening. We have foster care parents that are a part of the solution, that have taken on what is a devastating responsibility at times of bringing very difficult kids into their homes because they want to create a refuge and a place for these children to come and exist away from the abuse, and a place where they can teach them about God. That, man, I'm telling you, some of these families, you just don't know. You don't know how much sacrifice it has taken. It has eclipsed anything that ever looked like what they probably would have signed up for in life. And they do it because they just can't stand thinking that they would turn one of these children away. And so while there's this move towards conservatism from a growing number of people that would probably tell you they're patriots, I also see this giant elephant in the room issue being ignored by much of those same people, and for sure the church. If just 5% of the entertainment-based church that's got lots of money and big projectors and fog machines and rock concert worship shows, if they would just make this a matter of something they stump on from the podium, I think it could be world changing. Because here's what else I believe. Most of the people that attend these churches are looking to the pastors for leadership. Justin, I think most of them are good people. And again, you may have differences in theology or think of them as, I don't even want to say mean things. I know what gets said about people that go to the entertainment-based church. People will label them as sheep. I think I'm guilty on Skywatch of referring to groups of people that don't think for themselves as sheeple. I'm not sure that that's helpful. Sometimes I say things because I'm super passionate and I'm ramped up, and I'm not excusing myself. I'm just saying, if you go back and you start scrubbing me for every soundbite ever, you're probably going to find some soundbites that disagree with now what I'm saying, in terms of making sure that we don't say things that come off as judgmental. But there's got to be a line, for crying out loud, man. There's got to be a line. I would love to see the people that attend those churches do something. And I think that they would if they were being told by their leaders, hey, this is a dilemma. Did you know this is happening in the United States? You'd have families that attend those
ignorant, have
churches.
no idea.
They would sponsor children. They might open their own homes. Like, I'll take it. You don't have to be a deep end of the pool, Book of Revelation, Mike Heiser level intellect that watches Skywatch TV every week to do something good for these kids.
Amen.
You know what I'm saying? People on a pension that have no money whatsoever, that are desperate under the Biden economy just to buy bread. I'm not telling you that you have to give all of what you would have bought bread with to a donation at a place like Skywatch TV. I'm saying you can make this a matter of prayer, man. Some of the most powerful prayers that I've ever felt in my life came from a woman named Henrietta that was my mom's best friend. She was her senior best friend almost 25 years ago. And this woman, when she learned that I was not going to be able to have children, which is a whole other show, but me having some medical difficulties meant that I would likely never have children, put it before the Lord, and my wife and I started cranking out babies. Like, for years, nothing. I'm telling you, man, some of the most powerful voices, Justin, some of the most powerful intervention prayers that take place, I'm convinced, are from the orphans and the widows and our senior citizens that most of the church and society is thought of as boring or not interesting or forgotten. They have no use. And God is up there waiting for those prayers because they unleash heaven, man. I'm telling you, they move things.
Yeah.
So anyway, I've gotten on a bit of a stump there. I don't even remember what we were talking about, but
no, you're good.
I'm just vomiting my heart, man.
Oh, No, I appreciate it. Which I don't want to take all your time, Joe. I know you're a busy, busy guy. But if you don't mind, before I let you go, your father, like you said, he cast a big shadow. He was somebody a lot of us looked up to, and
thank you.
Just cut our teeth reading his stuff and look forward to, we brought him in our homes, man. He was in our living room sitting with us, and we were eager to hear, from Uncle Tom, what he had to say, and for all of us, that didn't have a chance to actually know him, would you care? And if you don't, I completely understand, but, give us a feel of Tom, the man. What was he like as a father, as a leader of the company, and kind of like what was how did his mind work? Was he an encourager? Was he a drill sergeant? Was he the old sage that had always the words of wisdom? Kind of give us a feel for Tom, if you don't care.
I will. No, I'm delighted to answer the question. It's an opportunity for me to share what kind of a man he was. And most of the interviews that I do is focused on his professional ministerial career. I don't know that anybody's ever asked me during a show, what kind of a dad was he like? But, where do you start? I would say that some of my fondest memories will answer that question for you. What kind of a father was he? So first of all, my dad had a few things that were not flexible at all. One of them was probably the most important thing. He would say, Joe, there's only two things in this life that matter at all. And he would do this, and he would put up his hand. He would say, God and family. And everything else is a waste of time. And by that, he didn't mean that neighbors were a waste of time or that friends were a waste of time. He just meant that those would fall under the leading of God if you put him first. The relationships you're supposed to make, the people you're supposed to help, the path that you're going to take in life. It had a big umbrella. So I don't mean to dilute what he was asserting there. If you knew him, you knew that. But God and family, and then he would say in that order. In other words, family is very important. Even your wife. But if God's not number one, the rest of this will erode. And then he would say that selfishness is at the heart of the beginning of the end of every relationship that is forged, every business deal that is agreed upon, everything that you do in life. If selfishness on one or both of the parties prevails, it will not sustain. Whether that be marriage or a pastorship, or a commitment to a community, or you're responding to a call that God has put on your heart. Selfishness will always be the beginning of the end of whatever that was supposed to become. There were these lessons, like he spent time, man, raising us kids. I think that your viewers probably would have inferred just by what I've said already that that's exactly the kind of man that he was. So let me tell you a couple of the fun things. He was not flexible about date night with my mom. And he was not flexible about what he called happy day with dad, or father-son day, or daddy-daughter day. So date night with my mom was not flexible at all, Justin. In my entire childhood, from the earliest memories of even knowing what a date was till the day that he died, my dad on Friday, with the exception of probably less than I could count on one hand 5 times, did he allow, and then he would do a makeup date. Would he allow anything in the world to disrupt date night? He was so committed to my mom, and he believed that part of what kept romance alive, part of what kept the adventure living and not becoming stagnant, wasn't just partnering with each other to raise children and have careers. It was to constantly invest time to the adventure with your spouse. He always believed that it would dry up and become like a boring prison sentence and he watched this for 30 years as a family counselor. He knew what he was talking about. So he would, regardless of what was going on in life, he would take my mom on a date day. And as I was 16, I remember one time we had a bonfire in the backyard. It was actually we'd finished flipping a house and we had a bunch of lumber and stuff that just needed to be burned. And we sat out until midnight one night. And And I think I was drinking a 2-liter of Mountain Dew, like just for hours, burned this thing and sat and visited and ate pretzels and having guy time. And I recall him saying, you know, Joe, sometimes one day when you get married, there will be times where you're going to be with your spouse and you're not going to know what to talk about. You're going to find yourself at a place where you feel like I know everything about this person. How can we have another conversation about the same material? And he's like, as long as you keep digging and insist that you're going to talk, God will keep the adventure going. There you will discover. I had no idea that you were thinking about joining that board or doing a book or, you know, whatever. So he was a father that would sit down, man. If, you know, there was a few times in my life where I pushed him to the point where he had to paddle me. And when that happened, there was always 15 minutes or something after that. There was a sit down. And it was, first of all, more than warranted, completely deserved, but it would be a debrief.
Yeah.
Son, it hurts me.
You realize
more.
why I did this.
Exactly. You won't know until you're a father how much this hurts. Mm-hmm. But you have to understand that if I don't teach you while I have these windows during your formative years, how to become a man and how to think for yourself and how to challenge the status quo and all the things that were life lessons, he would frame for me what the dilemma was, exactly why I was being grounded next, or how I was going to treat my mom. You know, I went through some very rowdy periods of time where I concealed from my dad how absolutely unruly I was being at school and with my mom. And I've always said I was that kid that is living proof that you can have great parents, do all of the right things, and still have a child that just chooses, man. They're determined. They're not going to turn out right, or they're focused so much on selfishness of the things they're going to do. Defiance, outrage, whatever. I had all of the things, man. ADHD, OCD, all the things. Doctors wanted me on medications. They wanted my mom to medicate me. I mean, I'm telling you, I was obnoxious. Kenny C sees a little bit of that. And I'm still that guy, but I've learned over years and years and years that it's not always appropriate to just be obnoxious. You got to know your audience. But when he wasn't dating my mom, about every 8 weeks, you could almost count it down on the calendar, but about 6 times a year per child. So about once a month, he's rotating this, or every 5-6 weeks, he's rotating this. As I have 2 siblings that I shared him with, but about every 6 weeks, man, 8 weeks, you would go on Father Sunday. And I'm telling you, man, it would usually consist of my choice of Chuck E. Cheese-esque type venue. Mm-hmm. It would often include a trip to Toys R Us where he would let me pick out whatever the latest WWF action figure that had just come out, my choice of figurine. And then usually that evening, it's like a mega movie with all the the chips and the popcorn, whatever I want. Take me to the grocery store and let me just point at things. And you were going to have the greatest day ever. And
just to interrupt you really quick.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite wrestler?
Oh.
Were you Hulk Hogan, Macho Man, Ric Flair? Who was you?
Okay, so now you've started a brand new podcast that could go for 2 hours. Okay, so I know what you mean when you say
I'm a
who's your
Hulk Hogan man.
Okay, so if I had to just point at
doll.
Oh, is he? Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh.
Oh, check this out.
Now let's do a little something.
This is the JLN number 5. It's one of the top 5 rarest action figures, and it's signed.
Yep.
Love that thing.
Hang on, before you put it away, let me guess, because that's the white shirt LJN. That was the redo. The original one, he's like this. He's got both of his hands up. Mm-hmm. That was the one they sold, hundreds of thousands of. This one came out later. Great position. You could use it. You were always looking for figures that had a good action pose. I want to guess because I want to see if I'm right. 1986. It should say LJN 1986 manufactured blah blah blah. If it's not on his shorts, it'll be on the bottom of his boot.
80. think it's 88.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay,
you know
so
your stuff, man.
I was close. I was close. No, if I had to pick a wrestler that was my childhood favorite, I would have to go with Hulk Hogan, because as a child, he was larger than life. And wrapping this back into Father Sunday, on several occasions, because my dad ended up in distribution and we had various retail businesses and stuff, he had accounts with places like Baker and Taylor, and he would get these pro bono tickets to go see wrestling at the Portland Memorial Coliseum in Oregon. And I remember, man, being 9 years old, and my dad takes me to like Sears, and they have this whole display of T-shirts with Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant. And he let me pick one out, and that was the shirt that I wore. And I want to say it was in 1988. We watched Hulk Hogan versus King Kong Bundy live at the Portland Memorial Coliseum. And I think on the card also Tito Santana fought Adrian Adonis. Big John Studd wrestled Corporal Kirshner, I believe. But yeah, it was back in the heyday, man. And I will tell you something funny. So my dad never got it at all. He would affectionately say, "I think watching wrestling makes me dumber," referring to himself. He would try to watch these wrestling things.
It was all for you.
It was for me, man. And when I got a little older, like 13, 14, he finally confessed. He said, "Man, I watch this stuff for you, but I think it makes me dumber. I don't know what your deal is. I don't know. He just thought it's stupid. It's phony. How any human being would purposefully sit down and watch it." And he was a huge boxing fan. He loved to watch, Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield and Riddick Bowe and all that whole rivalry. But no, man, he was an awesome dad. He was a tender dad. He was not a drill sergeant, so he comes off very stoic and very serious on TV. What he did was he unlocked leading through a strength that would make people want to follow the vision. And then he would hire people that he could trust to do that portion of the vision so that he didn't have to micromanage them. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
It was if I get 4% of his ability to do that, I'll be grateful. He was a master at getting people to follow the vision. So
that's awesome. Joe, thank you, man, for all your time. I'm so appreciative. And I know that the guys that are watching and listening are definitely appreciative that you let us in and give us some behind the scenes. Just anything you want to connect people to or direct their attention to, like any kind of new stuff coming up, websites. This is your time to let people know where to find your stuff.
There's a lot of .coms, but the one that I would just send everybody to is kind of a universal catch-all would be skywatchtv.com. If you're interested in learning more about the Rescue Us series that I've mentioned several times, you'll learn about it via skywatchtv.com. We'll be running programs there. You can also learn about Eden's Essentials. That's a company of mine that focuses on holistic health. And that also is on the Skywatch TV app, along with the Donna Howell Show, the flagship Skywatch TV program. So yes, we do have a mobile app. You can download it free right now and have access at your fingertips to all of the programs that I'm talking about, from Skywatch TV to Return to Eden. You want to learn more about Whispering Ponies Ranch, the same. Go to skywatchtv.com. You can learn about how you can be a counselor for these children if you want to cook in the kitchen, to be involved with the food service part of what they do every year. They will take volunteers of all age, of all background. Well, I shouldn't say of all backgrounds. I mean, in terms of talent and skill, obviously you have to pass a background check to make sure that you're not a problematic pedophile or something to that effect. But people with backgrounds in all types of giftings. We have volunteers that do acoustic guitar playing for the worship, and young junior counselors that are just there to serve in the food line. And they would want to go to skywatchtv.com or for that, royalfamilykids.com or forthechildren.org or teenreach.org.
Thank you so much once again. Appreciate your time. And guys, definitely check out their stuff if you haven't already. You will be amazed. They have enough content to keep you glued to your couch for the next 10 years. And it's all great stuff. So, but once again, guys, thank you for tuning in. Appreciate it. Until next time, torch is high, guys.